This Part 2 Episode 53. Another 7 golden wolves had already reached the mountaintop by the time the first golden wolf was thrown to the side. All of them rushed towards Huiyuhao. Their cultivations varied from 300 to 2,000 years, which was evident from their size and muscle density. Huiyuhao initiated his spiritual detection and moved extremely quickly. He used the ghost shadow perplexing track to burst towards the smallest golden wolf, and then lifted both of his arms, causing a crisp, clanging sound to resonate. He'd fired the Zhuge divine crossbows, causing several sharp arrows to pierce into the golden wolf's flesh and for them to howl in pain. He didn't even need to use his spiritual detection to know that 2 of the golden wolves had collapsed. Huiyuhao had reached the smallest golden wolf at this point, his figure flashing to the side as he dodged its attack. At the same time, he used his dark golden terror claws to sever the wolf's spinal cord through its neck, instantly killing it. The silver wolf was a silver moon wolf king, a 10,000-year soul beast, and the same soul beast that Huiyuhao was looking for. Huiyuhao wasn't afraid at all now. Instead, he was a little excited. Fear had completely vanished from his head, and had been replaced with composure. He didn't need to clash with the golden wolves. His only objective was to kill the silver moon wolf king behind them and bring its soul ring away successfully. However, this would be a difficult task. The rest of the golden wolves didn't attempt to rush to the top of the mountain. As the top of the mountain wasn't very large, if too many of them were to gather, it wouldn't be advantageous for their leaders. Huiyuhao's use of the wolves' corpses to unleash his ice explosion technique was also another important reason for them being afraid of coming to the top of the mountain. Huiyuhao suddenly made his move. He leapt forwards like an arrow, actively launching an attack. The moment his body moved, a golden vertical eye opened on his forehead. A mighty aura that seemed to be in control of destiny was suddenly released. The 3 golden wolves and the silver moon wolf king that had already prepared their own strategy were stunned by this, and an indescribable fear filled their hearts. At that point, a streak of purplish light shot out from the eye of destiny, its target being the silver moon wolf king. Yes. This was the strongest spiritual type strike that Huiyuhao could currently unleash, the staring soul of destiny. The silver moon wolf king was a soul beast with extremely great amount of spiritual power, but its body began to shake tremendously, and it screamed ferociously when its gaze met Huiyuhao's eye of destiny. A light suddenly shot out from its head as it tried to resist destiny, and Huiyuhao's staring soul of destiny. This light was blue, red, yellow, green, gold, black, and purple. When it appeared, the air around the silver moon wolf king began to distort. It distorted so greatly that even the silver moon wolf king's body began to become indistinguishable. When the purplish golden light, that was filled with the might of destiny struck the 7-colored light, it caused it to distort furiously. It turned into a huge whirlpool that wanted to crush Huiyuhao's staring soul of destiny. The silver moon wolf king should have only just reached the 10,000-year level. However, it had still managed to withstand Huiyuhao's attack. Huiyuhao had even borrowed the Sky Dream Iceworm's strength and spiritual power to increase his own power in order to make it unbearable for the silver moon wolf king. Yet the silver moon wolf king hadn't died, even though its eyes had burst. This had put a little dent in Huiyuhao's plan. Everything seemed to have happened very slowly, but all of this actually occurred extremely quickly. His speed was frightening under the effect of the Class 5 Soul Tool. Huiyuhao hugged his knees to his chest and used his hands to hug his legs as he lowered his head. This was to reduce the surface area of his collision. The Ice Empress armor covered his entire body. He was currently like an enormous ice ball. The 3 golden wolves reacted quickly. The burliest golden wolf in the center stood up straight, and its 2 claws pierced towards Huiyuhao as it let out an ear-piercing roar. The golden wolf on the left retreated rapidly and protected the silver moon wolf king. The golden wolf on the right teamed up with the central golden wolf to attack Huiyuhao. Indeed, the higher the cultivation of a soul beast, the more intelligent it was. The 3 golden wolves complemented each other very well, and worked together efficiently. Although the enfeeblement had taken effect on them, their offensive strength didn't dip by a lot. After all, Huiyuhao was still some way off from their abilities. That was why Huiyuhao's soul skill didn't affect them too much. Under normal circumstances, Huiyuhao's best choice was to use his spiritual detection to try and avoid the golden wolves' attacks. However, this would make it impossible for him to burst past them. Huiyuhao looked very calm now. It was as if it wasn't his body that was about to be struck. There was no resistance or attack. He chose to take the strikes of the 2 golden wolves forcefully. A scarlet golden radiance suddenly shone from Hui Yuhao's body. In the pitch-dark night, another sun seemed to rise from the mountaintop. The golden wolf that was protecting the Silver Moon Wolf King became much slower. Hui Yuhao's body twisted in the air, and he avoided its claws. He came before the Silver Moon Wolf King. At this point, the 3 golden wolves were behind him, while the Silver Moon Wolf King was in front of him. He was surrounded by the 4 wolves now. A cold look appeared in Hui Yuhao's eyes. He didn't even bother with the 3 golden wolves behind him. The domain of perpetual ice could at least ensure that they couldn't attack within the next 3 seconds. What he had to do now was deal with the Silver Moon Wolf King before the 3 golden wolves recovered. He unleashed everything that he was holding in earlier. The Silver Moon Wolf King was also affected by the domain of perpetual ice, and its movement was slowed. However, its resistance was superior to the 3 golden wolves, so it was recovering faster. However, Hui Yuhao wouldn't grant it the opportunity to fully recover. An azure blue light flashed in his left hand before disappearing. A compressed boom sounded right in front of the Silver Moon Wolf King's face. The frozen bloodstains on its fur that were left by the domain of perpetual ice exploded. When the Silver Moon Wolf King was struck by the Destiny Soul Gaze, its eyeballs had been blown apart as it neutralized the impact of spiritual shock, and its crushed eyeballs had left a pile of fluid. Although its body wasn't frozen by the domain of perpetual ice, it couldn't prevent these fluids from flowing out. And now, Hui Yuhao used the ice explosion technique to blow that frozen fluid apart. The explosive force of this direct explosion was naturally incomparable to the explosive force when the ice explosion technique was injected into a corpse. However, a portion of the ice exploded inside the Silver Moon Wolf King's eye sockets. In addition, it happened very suddenly. The Silver Moon Wolf King's body suddenly rose up as it screamed in pain. The intense pain caused it to lose its cool and judgment. The dark golden terror claws turned into 4-meter-long blades of light that stabbed into the Silver Moon Wolf King's body. This 10,000-year Silver Moon Wolf King was very powerful. It seemed to possess something like an automatic defensive soul tool when the dark golden terror claws stabbed into its body. The 7-colored radiance that had once appeared from it flashed again. It was different from the time it tried to resist Hui Yuhao's spiritual power. This time, Hui Yuhao only felt that his dark golden terror claws had stopped 7 times. After 7 roars were heard, he finally managed to strike the Silver Moon Wolf King. While this battle was a little risky for Hui Yuhao, it was still within his projections. It was only the Silver Moon Wolf King's abilities that were beyond his expectations. However, he used his immense explosive strength to counteract the slight deviation in his plan. It was very difficult to find a suitable spiritual type soul beast for himself. Since he had found one, he couldn't let it go. He had asked Juzi and Cuckoo to leave first so that he could unleash his full abilities. 2 facts had let him keep his life. The first was his location. Since he was high on a mountain, it gave him an opportunity to fly into the air to shake off his enemies. If he had stayed the ground, he would have needed to gain some altitude after using a flight soul tool. With the Golden Wolves' leaping abilities, they would have been able to attack him 3 times each. That was equivalent to 9 strikes, since there were 3 Golden Wolves. Hui Yuhao found a secluded area along the branch trail of the mountain range, and used his spiritual detection to scan his surroundings. After he confirmed that there was nothing that could threaten him within a 2-kilometer radius, he quietly sat down on a large mountain rock. As a golden light flashed, he first flung out a golden wolf's corpse. This golden wolf was killed by him previously. It had had a cultivation of around 1,000 years. Hui Yuhao pressed his right hand against the golden wolf's corpse and muttered something under his breath. He was speaking in a weird language, but his body started to shine with weird streaks of light. The light then changed, starting from his eyes. Hui Yuhao's spirit eyes turned grey, and were filled with a sense of death. The greyish light circulated, and his right hand was slowly coated in a layer of blurry, greyish light. The greyish color was slowly injected into the head of the golden wolf's corpse, and a weird scene appeared. The dead golden wolf started to tremble slightly. Its fur gradually stood on end, and its huge body slowly crawled to its feet. However, its brownish-yellow eyes had turned grey, just like Hui Yuhao's. It was a terrifying scene to watch. Hui Yuhao lifted his right hand, and his index finger touched the golden wolf's forehead lightly. The golden wolf's body trembled a little, and the greyish color in its eyes turned into jumping, greyish flames. "Protect me and you won't come to harm." Hui Yuhao's voice was deep and captivating. The golden wolf nodded its head in a very human manner after hearing his words. After that, it jumped away and disappeared into the forest. Hu Yuhao breathed out and revealed a delighted look. This was his real secret. Even in Shrek Academy, no one knew about it. It was necromancy that came from the divine law of necromancy, taught to him by Calamity Necromancer Electrolux. When Hu Yuhao's soul power cultivation broke the rank 40 barrier, Electrolux told him that he could start cultivating necromancy. Hu Yuhao was a little doubtful about necromancy at the start, but he soon accepted it under Electrolux's guidance. An intense azure light spread to every corner of his body. A chilly aura instantly repressed the manic explosive force. The Ice Jade Empress Scorpion's aura was also released at this moment, and repressed the Silver Moon Wolf King's soul ring. While the Silver Moon Wolf King was very powerful, how could it compare to a 400,000-year soul beast that was one of the 10 great savage beasts, and 3 heavenly kings of the extreme north, the Ice Empress? The all-engulfing, frightening will and desolate aura of the Ice Empress instantly repressed the manic struggle. However, the Silver Moon Wolf King was an arrogant creature. It wouldn't submit even under such circumstances. Since it couldn't match up in terms of soul power, it activated its dominant spiritual power. However, once it did so, it collided with a spiritual barrier. The Skydream Iceworm was not as hot-tempered as the Ice Empress, but the Silver Moon Wolf King had crossed its bottom line. Hu Yuhao had expended a lot of effort to kill this soul beast. He was fatigued now, and couldn't be counted on to absorb the soul ring. After remaining silent for so long, the Skydream Iceworm decided that it had to do something, and so the Silver Moon Wolf King's spiritual power didn't work. In terms of species, the Iceworms couldn't compare to the Silver Wolves. They weren't even on the same level. However, the Silver Moon Wolf King wasn't anywhere near as old as the Skydream Iceworm. Even in the Great Star Doe Forest, Skydream Iceworms were treated as treasures by the other 100,000-year soul beasts. No soul beasts in the world could compare to Skydream Iceworms in terms of spiritual power. The only weakness of the Skydream Iceworms was that they didn't have any offensive abilities. However, they were immensely strong in terms of defense. The fusion process became much easier with the help of the Ice Empress and Skydream Iceworm. The Black Fourth Soul Ring was slowly imprinted onto Hu Yuhao's soul and body after a brief period of torment. Not only this, but the Skydream Iceworm and Ice Empress also took this opportunity to further fuse their powers into Hu Yuhao's body. The origin power released by the Ice Empress skeleton slowly combined with Hu Yuhao's body. Not only did this enhance his soul power, it also made his body tougher. The Skydream Iceworm used his own spiritual power to restore Hu Yuhao's spiritual C and second mental C. At the same time, it expanded the size of Hu Yuhao's spiritual C. I wonder how much time has passed. With his previous experience of how long it took him to absorb soul rings, Hu Yuhao was uncertain whether it was the second, third, or even the fourth morning. His mind wavered, and a golden light shone from his eyes. 1 white, 1 purple, and 2 black soul rings rose from his feet. His spiritual detection was unleashed, and Hu Yuhao was delighted to feel that it had been enhanced once again. He was now able to increase his detection to a 600-meter radius. If he changed his detection to make it unidirectional, he could double the distance. The Silver Moon Wolf King's corpse was as stiff as ever. The ice imbuing it couldn't be melted so easily. Hu Yuhao put the corpse away in his storage-type soul tool, and his 4 soul rings also disappeared. His trip to the Jingyang mountain range wasn't a waste after all. He wondered what his 4th soul ring's ability was. As he thought about it, the 4 soul rings that had disappeared earlier surfaced once again. The black 4th soul ring lit up brightly, and a soul skill activated. Hu Yuhao was stunned after it was displayed. He wasn't sure whether he should be happy or worried. He naturally expected the 7-colored, 7 elements defense of the Silver Moon Wolf King. It was an impressive defensive skill. However, that was not what he had obtained. It wasn't a defensive type soul skill. Rather, it was. Then they passed out. They didn't even crawl back into the all-terrain exploration soul tool. They were in rather good luck though. No soul beasts found them while they were unconscious. They regained consciousness slowly on the 2nd morning as the sun shone upon them. Next the 2 of them decided to return to find Hu Yuhao, just after resting for a moment. The 2 of them were in different states of mind, but they remained silent, and didn't interact with one another. This was especially so for Juzi, who experienced the large spectrum of emotions. At times, she was panicked and anxious, at others, she was sad and hot-tempered. This was Cuckoo's first time seeing her display so many emotions in one go. Cuckoo was more straightforward compared to her. She only thought of Hu Yuhao's resolute expression and confidence when they were separating. Cuckoo could still recall a reverberating sound from the top of the mountain when they were rolling down. Without a doubt, this sound came from the pack of golden wolves Hu Yuhao had attracted. At that moment, she knew that she would never forget Hu Yuhao. They might have only been friends, or she could have developed feelings for him. Regardless, Hu Yuhao left a deep impression on her young heart. Although they didn't interact with each other much, they still silently acknowledged that they had to rescue Hu Yuhao. Which was why they rested for only a short while. After their bodies recovered, they immediately controlled the battered all-terrain exploration soul tool to venture deep back into the Jingyang mountain range. They tried to find Hu Yuhao, and had spent the last 2 days doing so. They met many soul beasts over the last 2 days. However, they were never in real danger since they were Class 5 soul engineers, and even had the all-terrain exploration soul tool to protect them. But, when they reached the top of the mountain, all they could find was traces of his battle. They couldn't find Hu Yuhao. They also tried to search for him in the nearby mountains. They refused to believe that Hu Yuhao was dead. Despite this, they didn't make any progress. When they were finally prepared to leave and proceed towards the old rendezvous point, they were attacked by some powerful soul beasts. Enemies often crossed each other's path. They met the same pack of golden wolves that Hu Yuhao shook off the other day. Through the death of the Silver Moon Wolf King, the 3 golden wolves were dealt a vicious blow. The Silver Moon Wolf King had been extremely sensitive to the raw materials most suitable for the metal-type wolf's cultivation. Under its guidance, the abilities of the entire wolf pack increased by about 20%. This was a staggering figure. This meant that a golden wolf could have 120 years of cultivation, even if it had only cultivated for 100 years. 3 blasts fired from the wind lightning cannon towards the wolf pack, and a piercing hum loosed from the all-terrain exploration soul tool as Juzi filled it with her soul power. Its 6 mechanical legs began moving rapidly, bursting out towards the front. Juzi made the right choice. The sudden changes left the golden wolves shocked, and unable to react in time. 2 of the 3 golden wolf kings were stunned already, and they managed to brush past them easily. However, the last golden wolf king was still in peak condition, and its pressure erupted forth. The hair on its back stood on end, and flashed with an intense golden glow. It faced the sky and roared furiously, then its body swelled, and its muscles bulged in an exaggerated manner. It started to chase after the all-terrain exploration soul tool like a bolt of lightning. The all-terrain exploration soul tool was extremely swift with its top speeds engaged. However, it still needed some time to accelerate to full speed. The golden wolves might have lost their long-range offensive abilities, but their strength, speed and defense were still fearsome. The golden wolf king hurtled forward. It lowered its head and rammed it into the all-terrain exploration soul tool. If Hu Yuhao were around, he could use his spiritual detection to sense the changes in their surroundings and react quickly by attacking behind them. However, Juzi and Cuckoo weren't Hu Yuhao, let alone the fact that they were exhausted. In addition, Cuckoo had also depleted a lot of her energy trying to carve out an escape route just now. Juzi still activated a defensive barrier, but the golden wolf king also still crashed against it. The all-terrain exploration soul tool could definitely withstand one all-out strike from a Class 6 soul engineer. However, its defensive barrier was only Class 5 right now, since it was dependent on the user's cultivation. The golden wolf king's fierce attack overcame the Class 5 soul tool barrier instantly. Its claws grazed against the metal ball maniacally, and its head struck the side of the all-terrain exploration soul tool heavily. The all-terrain exploration soul tool was indeed durable. Although struck off balance, the golden wolf king's attack only left a dent, and couldn't put a hole in the soul tool. That golden wolf king lowered its head subconsciously and stared at him. A weird scene suddenly came about. A 1-foot-high, 7-colored whirlpool surfaced above the golden wolf king. It revolved in an awkward manner before penetrating through the golden wolf's skull into its body. The golden wolf king's body stiffened up instantly, becoming motionless. Its blood-red eyes turned a silver shade like Hu Yuhao's, so too did the whirlpool-like radiance coming from its body. Hu Yuhao's eyes became normal again a moment later. A strong killing aura exuding from his body. Hu Yuhao carried a deep enmity with this pack of golden wolves that had threatened his life earlier. Now they were even threatening Cuckoo and Juzi's lives. His eye of destiny opened, and a purplish golden light flashed before disappearing. Another golden wolf king's body stiffened up instantly. It didn't nearly possess the same spiritual powers the Silver Moon Wolf King did. It couldn't even resist when faced against the might of the Destiny Soul Gaze. It blew apart after its body turned rigid, and fresh blood scattered everywhere. It was killed instantaneously. She suddenly lifted her left hand and bit down on her own wrist forcefully. She left a deep wound, and used the intense pain to stabilize her mindset before quickly threading the needle successfully this time. After that, she started to stitch up Hu Yuhao's wounds. Her stitching started from his ruptured capillaries before she proceeded to his muscles and skin. To reduce Hu Yuhao's blood loss, she could only keep pressure on his wounds with her body weight. Her clothes were quickly stained with Hu Yuhao's blood. Stitching up wounds required meticulous care. For someone like Zhu Zi, whose forte was carving detailed formations, this wasn't hard to pull off. Hu Yuhao's blood loss was finally being stopped. Even so, he still looked very weak and pale. Zhu Zi felt heat coming from the places stained with Hu Yuhao's blood. Concentrated bursts of warmth entered her body, and left her feeling very comfortable. This also let her restore her energy quickly. Zhu Zi immediately recognized this as a problem. She couldn't let him waste his blood's power because of her. Just, what power does he have in his blood? Zhu Zi removed Hu Yuhao's torn clothing as Cuckoo watched her from afar. After that, she lifted him up and leaned him against a huge tree. She rubbed Hu Yuhao's blood onto the parts of his body that weren't injured. Zhu Zi was already breathing heavily at this point. The depletion of her energy left her extremely fatigued, and she felt she might faint at any time. However, she was closely monitoring Hu Yuhao's heartbeat at this moment. Although Hu Yuhao's heartbeat was very slow, it was still beating. This was also her last shred of hope. Zhu Zi judged that Hu Yuhao had lost almost half of his blood from his injuries. This would be fatal for a normal person, but she could also sense that Hu Yuhao's life power was very strong. Even though he was critically injured, his heart was still beating resolutely. How is he? Cuckoo walked over and asked after her soul power had been restored by the milk bottle. She passed a milk bottle to Zhu Zi as well. Zhu Zi laughed bitterly and replied, I don't know. A normal person should have caved in under such injuries. But he's still alive. I've stitched his wounds, but the shrapnel is still not out. Let's see whether he can survive beyond today. I'm only scared that he'll suffer from an infection. The shrapnel should be unclean. However, he's lost too much blood. Everything depends on him now. Cuckoo stripped off her outerwear and covered Hu Yuhao's blood-stained body. She looked at Zhu Zi and laughed bitterly. Sister Zhu Zi, are you repaying your benefactor with your own body? Zhu Zi turned red, and her cheeks turned rosy. Don't talk nonsense. His blood has a special strength that is very beneficial for one's body. I'm returning the blood that stained me to heal his body. Cuckoo squatted down and looked at Hu Yuhao. She said, we both owe him our lives. Especially me. If I hadn't been so reckless, he wouldn't be in this state. Zhu Zi shook her head and said, how can you be blamed? We were both in danger. I didn't even realize that he had arrived. But you're right. We owe him our lives. Cuckoo focused and stood up. She said, Sister Zhu Zi, take a rest. I'll protect the both of you. Zhu Zi was right. If Hu Yuhao's injuries were inflicted on someone else, that person would have been dead by now. The shrapnel wasn't from the all-terrain exploration soul tool. The powerful shockwave was kept out by the Hongchen's blessing. What really tore his skin and muscles were the soul tools on his body that blew apart in the explosion. His life hung by a thread, as he was protected by the Hongchen's blessing and the Ice Empress armor. Zhu Zi was right when she had tried to limit his blood loss. What she didn't know was that he wasn't destined to die once she stabilized his injuries. How would Hu Yuhao, who had fused with the immense life power of life gold, die so easily? The strength within his blood came from the life power of life gold. This immense life power wasn't just in his blood, but was spread out all through his body, from his bones to his internal organs. Hu Yuhao's life power started to return as he healed. The immense life power started to stimulate his bone marrow, and increase the rate at which he created new blood. His energy was slowly restored, and his internal organs were being healed. It was treatment from the inside out. Cuckoo didn't dare to sleep. Although she was exhausted, she had to hold on for their safety. The sun in the sky rose higher and higher. The warm sunlight shone down on her and left her slightly hazy. After taking a small bite of some food, she restored her energy and chased away a few soul beasts who didn't have high cultivations. She also came to check on Hu Yuhao and Zhu Zi from time to time. She discovered that Hu Yuhao's body was slowly getting hotter and hotter, as if he had developed a fever. However, his temperature was still within an acceptable range. His pulse wasn't any weaker, either. Cuckoo was completely clueless about healing. She didn't know what to do, and thus could only wait. Cuckoo was on the verge of collapse when Zhu Zi awoke from her sleep. Although her soul power had recovered, her mental energy was almost depleted since she had to be wary of soul beasts the whole time. Cuckoo, take a break. Let me take over for you, Zhu Zi said to Cuckoo, who was muddle-headed by now. Cuckoo stood up and rushed over to them, asking, how is he? The two of them were efficient. After Zhu Zi had 10 to 12 hours of rest, her body had already recovered. After she pitched the tent, Cuckoo went inside with Hu Yuhao and laid down beside him. She was so exhausted that she passed out instantly. Zhu Zi was the one on guard duty now. She was feeling much better now. She adjusted her soul tool defense line before adding some chemical items that had the effect of chasing soul beasts away. Zhu Zi discovered that her body felt much better, and even more vibrant. Not only was her fatigue gone, but she was filled with energy. Even her soul power seemed to have been enhanced. Zhu Zi couldn't help but wonder if it was her reward for being nice. That was exactly the case. The Life Gold's life power helped Hu Yuhao heal. There was also some external flow of the immense life aura when Zhu Zi was stained with some of Hu Yuhao's fresh blood. This allowed the Life Gold's aura to nourish her body and let her feel more refreshed. Cuckoo was also likely to benefit, as she lay beside Hu Yuhao now. The sky was slowly turning dark. Zhu Zi sat in front of the tent and watched her surroundings. Her emotions started to rise as she sat there on guard duty. Daddy, is he your reincarnation, sent here to lessen my pain? Zhu Zi sighed slightly. She had always been concealing her inner thoughts with her innocent look. However, she was actually someone who was ice-cold at heart. She only thought of revenge. For this, she didn't mind being pretentious, and became a young lady that no one would be wary of. She was aware that Zimu had always been chasing her. However, she didn't give him a straight answer all this while because her plan didn't allow her to date. She had a goal, and this goal was an important part of her plan for revenge. However, the calm in her heart changed when she tasted Hu Yuhao's cooking. It was a change that caused her to panic inside. When Hu Yuhao woke up from his sleep, it was already light again. I'm alive. That was his first thought. He subconsciously initiated the circulation of his soul power. His soul power had already been restored, but the circulation of it wasn't very smooth. His passageways and back were filled with a piercing pain. He groaned slightly, and opened his eyes. The first thing he saw was a beautiful face. The smooth and tender complexion of that face gave a refreshing feeling even though the tent was slightly dim. He had never seen such a refreshing beauty. Her eyes were shut as she lay beside him. Hu Yuhao immediately realized that he wasn't wearing anything except for a blanket. Zhu Zi, Hu Yuhao whispered. Zhu Zi was jolted awake. She had only just fallen asleep after Cuckoo took over her guard duty. Her large eyes opened and her eyelashes perked up. Hu Yuhao was rather swept away by her appearance. You're awake? Zhu Zi asked, surprised. Hu Yuhao tried to prop himself up, but he felt an intense pain in his back. He groaned and laid back down. Don't move, your injuries are very serious, Zhu Zi said hurriedly. What happened to me? Hu Yuhao asked. Zhu Zi related what had happened after the explosion, except for the part where she carried him naked. The explosion was too powerful. Cuckoo's soul tools are indeed very powerful. Hu Yuhao laughed bitterly. After resting for 2 hours, Zhu Zi helped Hu Yuhao remove the remaining pieces of shrapnel. Soon, most of the shrapnel had been removed, with the exception of one final piece. Zhu Zi looked at Hu Yuhao and was even more impressed with him. His forehead was also perspiring, but he still wore a smile. She had never seen someone as resolute as him. Rest a while more before the last piece, Zhu Zi told him. Hu Yuhao shook his head and said, since it's the last piece, let's take it out. I also want to relax, otherwise I'll keep thinking of it. Don't worry, I can take it. It's better to suffer now than later. This piece cut into at least 3 of his passageways. Although it wasn't the main passageway, it greatly affected the circulation of the mysterious heaven technique. In addition, the wound brought him great pain if he moved even slightly. Juzi hesitated for a while before nodding her head, as she grit her teeth. This piece is deep. If it's too painful, just bite my arm. As she spoke, she pulled up the sleeve covering her left arm and extended her slender arm in front of Hu Yuhao. Hu Yuhao only grabbed her wrist after hesitating for a moment. Her wrist was soft and tender. The raiment of light's projection was undoubtedly the most ravishing beauty that Hu Yuhao had ever seen, but Juzi had the best complexion. Although she wasn't as pretty as the raiment of light's projection, and was even slightly inferior to Jiang Nannan, she was still a beauty like Ma Xiaodao. Ma Xiaodao had the best figure, while Juzi had the best complexion. There was a sense of gentleness, as he felt her tender skin. It was an indescribable feeling. I'm about to start. Juzi didn't know that Hu Yuhao's heart had fluttered slightly. Her right hand held onto the exposed part of the piece of shrapnel, and she looked nervous. Hu Yuhao nodded slightly and relaxed his back muscles. It would be much easier if he wasn't tense. His eye of destiny also evolved. Hu Yuhao wasn't sure how much it evolved, but the sealed spiritual power left in his body by the Skydream Iceworm had been substantially absorbed again. His spiritual sea and second mental sea also expanded. His spiritual detection could now scan a radius of up to 700 meters, and his one-directional detection now reached more than 1,200 meters. The greater his cultivation, the more Hu Yuhao could sense the dominance of the million-year soul ring given to him by the Skydream Iceworm. It possessed 4 soul skills, which were the best of the best, and became the foundation for his spirit eyes. Although the subsequent 3 soul rings gave him imitation, enfeeblement and spiritual confusion, the practicality of these 3 skills couldn't hold a candle to Skydream's million-year soul ring. His soul skills experienced a change in quality, as his soul power reached rank 40. Hu Yuhao simply possessed too many powerful soul skills, but if not for the fact that some of his soul skills could only be unleashed using his spiritual power, he wouldn't even be able to unleash half them using his soul power before he reached this stage. After his soul power increased, he managed to get some relief in this aspect. Hu Yuhao wished that Wang Dong was here. He only realized how important Wang Dong was after leaving Shrek Academy. Wang Dong already passed rank 50 and become a soul king. His twin martial souls made his soul power extremely vigorous, and if the 2 of them used their Haodong power and 4 martial soul fusion skills, Hu Yuhao had confidence they could face off against a 7-ringed soul sage. Hu Yuhao started missing Wang Dong as he thought of him. He looked in the direction of Shrek Academy and seemed a little out of sorts. What's wrong? You miss Shrek? Juzi's voice sounded. Hu Yuhao twisted his head to look at her and smiled. A little. I miss my partner, a girl. Juzi asked a sensitive question. Hu Yuhao shook his head. Juzi walked beside him and looked in the direction of Shrek too. She said slowly, Yuhao, I don't want to meet you in battle in the future. Hu Yuhao spoke in a dreary tone, you're a girl. Must you go to war? Juzi replied, what's war got to do with gender? Don't tell me that the enemy will be merciful just because I'm a female. I've told you before that avenging my parents is my only motivation. Hu Yuhao furrowed his brows. Is there only hatred in your life? Juzi hesitated for a while before shifting her gaze away from his body. However, she was still confident when she said, yes. Hu Yuhao was silent. He revealed a pensive look of regret on his face. I'm not able to change your mentality, and I may not be qualified to even attempt to do so. Because I have the same hatred in my heart. Juzi's voice turned a little weird. What if we meet on the battlefield? Teacher Xian, are you okay? Hu Yuhao asked. Xian Zuan lifted his leg and kicked his butt. He said embarrassedly, get lost. Juzi and Cuckoo were waiting outside. Juzi continued to say, Teacher Xian is really nice. Hu Yuhao was puzzled as he asked, what do you mean? Juzi lowered her voice and said, with his attitude it shows that he's going to tank this matter for us. The all-terrain exploration soul tool was completely destroyed. He's really too nice taking responsibility for such a serious matter like this. Cuckoo laughed, why do you think I rewarded him with a kiss? Teacher Xian is really cute when his face turns red like that. While he looks quite old, I think he's still a virgin. I've never heard any gossip about him. Hu Yuhao was speechless. He thought to himself, that was a reward. She was clearly seducing Teacher Xian. All right ladies, you two should rest. I'm going to shower. I think that there's some lice on my body. I'll see the both of you tomorrow. After speaking, Hu Yuhao returned to his dormitory with haste. He took a shower and changed his clothes. After his shower he felt really refreshed. Then he sat cross-legged on his bed. He unleashed his spiritual detection, and he started to cultivate. After leaving for so many days, he should pay a visit to his second senior brother now that he'd returned. He also wondered what Hikaitu had been learning all this while. However, Hu Yuhao was surprised to find out that Hikaitu still hadn't returned even though it was very late in the afternoon. Anxious, he rushed to ask some of the other Shrek students learning at the Sun Moon Imperial Soul Engineering Academy with them. Through them, he found out that Hikaitu managed to make his way into the illustrious Virtue Hall, and earned his right to cultivate while learning there. However, his experience in the Jingyang mountain range did allow him to reflect on his progress in the Ultimate Soldier plan over the past 2 years. He detected some problems, and needed to rectify them right now. At the same time, he needed to modify his soul tools. His fatigue disappeared after a night of rest. Hu Yuhao walked out of his dorm room after his routine morning cultivation. He was mentally prepared to reach the laboratory early and try to create the soul tools he had in mind. He was very cheerful after figuring out that he wanted to pursue a close combat route. He believed that he would improve even faster with this newfound sense of direction. However, he stopped once he walked out of his dorm room. It's him. Capture him. A pale Wang Xiaojie was standing not far away. He was pointing his finger at Hu Yuhao. With him were 6 middle-aged men, who looked to be somewhere between 30 to 40 years old. They all wore the same vest. They immediately unleashed their martial souls, 2 soul emperors and 4 soul kings. The leader walked up to Hu Yuhao and revealed a writ to him. He said coldly, "Royal stewards. You're Hu Yuhao." Hu Yuhao knew that he was in trouble. Although he was unafraid of them, it was impossible to conceal his full powers if he wanted to deal with them. He would also need to kill some, or all of them to escape. His mind moved quickly, as he calculated the pros and cons of retaliating. Their leader said coldly, "You stand accused of assaulting a member of the imperial family. You need to come with us to assist in our investigation." He revealed golden handcuffs as he spoke. His soul power was very strong. Should he dare to resist, the 6 royal stewards would team up to attack him. He didn't expect that he would have to face Wang Xiaojie after being gone for so long. While he looked strong and developed, he was actually a petty person at heart. Hu Yuhao smiled and extended his hands. "I'm an exchange student from Shrek Academy. Please help me inform my teachers. Otherwise, I don't think you'll be able to bear the responsibility of your actions." This video will end here. Thank you for watching.